Good morning.
How's everyone today?
Hi.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Sonia. So, if anyone had by chance looked at the cover of today's program,
Yes, sir.
you will have noticed that what we are sort of going to talk about today is this thing called instructions. Now, the reason we are talking about this is because over the last 2 weeks or so, I think I've gotten about literally 111 requests from different people saying, but how? How? I got the idea, but how? How do I do this thing? So, I could be wrong. I may not have asked you this before, but if I did, I don't care. I'm going to ask you again. There generally are two types of people when it comes to buying new electronics or a table from IKEA or something. There are generally two types of people. The type of people who get the thing, and the first thing they do is get the instruction book and page by page by page by page by page. I must know where every screw, every plug, every sticker, where is it? It says there's supposed to be 15 in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15. It says there's supposed to be 10 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's supposed to be 10. We're shaking the box. We're diligent. And then there are those who get the thing, open the box, toss the instructions aside, and the only time we touch the instructions is if and when something doesn't fit the way we thought it's supposed to fit. Raise your hand if you are brave enough to say, I'm group A. I look through the instructions, find the instructions, and diligently go page by page. I even read them in Spanish. I don't speak it, I don't read it, but just in case they put something in Spanish that gives me more clarity. German, I'm sprechen Sie Deutsch today, because I want to know how to put this table up. Like, we diligently go through it. And then there's group B, which I'm going to assume that those who did not just raise your hand, but let us raise our hands. Okay. And just for the fun of it, which group do you think I'm in? Yeah, pretty much. There's a certain level of enjoyment that comes with the adventure of figuring out how to do it. Let's think about this idea of if we were born and at the moment of our birth given an instruction manual. Our parents were given this to say, first of all, you use this to build this. And then at such time as it is ready, give this to them, so that they now are able to use the instruction manual to continue to build themselves. One, how big do you think this instruction manual would have to be? That's one. It would have to be like the Encyclopedia Britannica, a 4,000 volume set to be able to cover every aspect of our lives. So that's not really practical. Then there's the aspect of how many people in here consider yourselves pretty good cooks? Keep your hands up for a second. Put your hand down if you only follow, leave your hand up if you only follow the instructions, the recipes. So, hands down. Now, life is very similar to, this thing we call spirituality is very similar to cooking. Right? You have different types of or styles of cooking. You have French cuisine. You have Cuban cuisine. You have Japanese, Taiwanese, you have all these different types of foods. And each one has a distinct flavor, a distinct thing that it does for our palates. But if we only followed the French recipe books and only did what they do in France, that is all we are going to do? Don't laugh at me. This is my best Pepe Le Pew. If this is all we are going to do, we are not going to be able to to venture into something else, Japanese. We have to avail ourselves to letting this go and saying, but this is different. I cannot approach sushi the way I approach escargot. They're two different creatures. So I can't prepare them the same. I have to be open and available and willing. Especially if at some point down the line I want to do this thing called fusion. I want to do a Jamaican, Caribbean, Chinese, Tibetan infused pizza. Right?
Right.
I have to avail myself to say, okay, what do I mix? How do I mix it so that the moment you taste it, something hits your palate and you're like, but there's hints of like, wow, it's like this bite was Japanese and this bite was Jamaican and this, wow, how did you get so much flavor into this dish? But if we follow the instruction manual, that's not possible. Put that in your mind for a second. I'm going to share something about someone that, I don't know if you know this. Do you know that Steph is a master at Kung Fu? Did you know that? Well, first of all, let me explain what Kung Fu is. Because I know you're probably thinking, Kung Fu. Like, that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about the actual meaning of the word Kung Fu. In Chinese, Kung Fu means one who diligently practices and studies. Steph is a master at that. Steph wouldn't be able to do what he does. Thank you. He wouldn't be able to do with this thing what he does if he weren't. Anyone in here who is a skilled actor and you improv, various other musicians out there, that's Kung Fu. It is the ability to take the form and practice it until the formless shows up. To be able to take this and master it and make it your own, where you are no longer bound by the confines of this. It's what Bruce Lee did. He learned this and then created his own. Study the way until the way becomes your way, making it your own. That's why this question about how do I take this stuff and apply it to all these things in my life becomes a very your answer. Your answer. Your answer. Because it's going to be different for each of us. However, there are certain guidelines. You know, when we think of sacred texts, because when I was, in my Christian days, I was told that the Bible is basically an instruction manual. Not. If it were, and think about it, instruction manuals say, find this screw, okay, and put it in, okay, and okay. Like, it's very clear. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no interpretation that says, take this screw, throw it in the air, then find this one, and like it's not, it's very subjective. The Bhagavad Gita, the Kabbalion, the Zohar, all of these are not instruction manuals, but more like recipe books that give us guidelines of how we can apply certain truths or principles. Which is one reason why a Christian can read the Tao Te Ching and find truth in if they're open to it. Because when we're really, really, really open, anybody here know Alan Watts? It's not the guy that lives down the street. I'm talking about the Zen guy, Alan Watts. Okay, so Alan Watts said many years ago he went to study with this master, and he was supposed to be studying and talking about the ancient texts, like the old stuff that was written by the masters way back when. And basically the guy said, paraphrasing, the guy said, do you realize that when you master this ability to avail yourself, you are able to take any text and find truth? the newspaper, Alice in Wonderland, the dictionary, and find spiritual truth in it. Now, does that really mean that? There's a line in Harry Potter where Harry dies. And he says to Dumbledore, "Is this all happening in my mind?" And Dumbledore replies, "Is there a difference?" Ooh. What happens in our mind is our reality. That's Harry Potter. You had the power all along. Wizard of Oz. Like, it doesn't matter where we read it. If we are open to it, then we get what we are ready to receive. When the pupil is ready, the master appears, the teacher appears. So, something comes up and we're not sure, I'm not even sure what word to use. How do I change it, transform it, transmogrify it? How do I, that was a word we were wrestling with last week. How do I completely use the art of alchemy and turn this situation in my life from lead into gold? How do I become the phoenix and burn it up so that it can be reborn anew to be and spread life, joy, love, and beauty? And it boils down to each and every one of us has to get extremely grounded in whatever our spiritual practices are. And they're going to be as varied as our fingerprints. Some of us pray every day. Some meditate every day. Some do Tai Chi. Some do Qigong. Different people do different things. But we have to get to a level of doing it where we're no longer doing it. We're being it. Because that's a big difference. There's a point when you are learning to cook. And so you are doing cooking. I'm doing stuff. But once you get to the point where I don't need the recipes, they're in here. Then we have become that dish. We have become, that's why some people will say, "Oh my goodness, this is so good, you must have stuck your foot in it." It's a phrase some of you may not be familiar with. Now you know, now you can put it back there and you can use it one day. Made this chili and I put my foot, not literally, but you can use it now. It's yours, borrow it. But it means you have stepped into this thing. You have allowed it and you to be one. So, if I were to go through, if we had like this little interview thing and we were to come in here one by one, right? One by one, and you were being completely open, honest, transparent, and I were to ask you, do you meditate? How do you meditate? What does that mean to you? What does that look like? Like all of that stuff? Do you have answers? Because the ultimate thing boils down to, if your spiritual practice is not producing results that you want. I'm making a pizza, and I put it in the oven, and I bring it out, and I hand it to somebody, and I say, "Rich, taste this for me." And he goes, "Ugh." And I'm like, "Is it really that bad? Like, for real?" He's like, "Well, first of all, what is this? This is sushi? Sushi's supposed to be raw, bruh. I don't know why this is." That's number one. But just so you know, it's taste it. And I take, ooh. Do I serve it to others? Or do I go back and do it again until it is successful? We have to get to the point where we are saying, if my spiritual practice is not producing results, then I need to revisit it. I need to find out what in this practice is not as effective as it could be for me. So, in New Thought, the general idea is that what we are doing spiritually should be like a science. And if I take a certain number of hydrogen and a certain number of oxygen and put them together, I'm going to get water. If Carol does it, she's going to get water. Like if Ronnie does it, like everybody, if we do it, everybody's going to get water. There's a science to it. And if each and every one of us prays, we should ultimately get results. Meditation, results. Mindfulness, results. And if we are not, then on some level we are aimlessly wandering around just throwing stuff in a pot, hoping and, yeah, that didn't work. Rather than doing it with a more focused intent. So it takes a lot of time or a lot of focus or a lot of willingness to simply sit and say. And this kind of honesty can be painful. But to really look at our lives and say, in these 6 areas of divine prosperity, am I demonstrating abundance physically? My physical body temple and my physical surroundings, are they the way I desire and deserve for them to be? Do I love my body? Do I love the way I look? Do I love the way it operates? Do I appreciate it? Do I let it know that I appreciate it? Or do I allow subliminal, subconscious thoughts to degrade my body in the way that I would not allow someone else to do so? I wouldn't let someone else call me ugly, fat, anything. But am I doing it to myself? Am I berating my body for not, I remember when my knee used to, but I'm getting so old now that it's a curse. We're cursing ourselves by speaking that into being, by allowing those thoughts to. There are women in Okinawa who are 110 who shimmy up trees and grab bananas and coconuts and bring leaves down to make baskets. They're 110. 110. And we have 30-year-olds who are like, yeah. You're 30. Why is it? We've allowed ourselves to buy into the lie that our culture says. You can go to Walmart or CVS right now and walk through the greeting card aisle and find any number of cards that tell you, you're at the big 3-0, you're at the big 5-0, you're halfway around, you got 1 foot in the grave. And we buy these for our friends and family because it's cute. It's cute. Here, Nana. Yeah, is this Jenkins, and Horowitz? I'd like to change my will. Are we buying into and allowing that very wretchedness to take over our lives? Or are we willing to say, no? It's like what we've been talking about in our Wednesday night class. There's a level of truth that we are demanding to experience. Because we know that if we say, I am the I am, showing up as me, it is I am, then why do I not deserve health and well-being far in excess of anything I've ever felt before? Why can't I wake up as a 50-year-old, 50 youngin', why can't I wake up 50 and have the vibrancy and energy of a 15-year-old if I want to? You know, why not? Because our culture and society says, really? Really? Because I already know there are times when Tracy and I go somewhere and the inner 5-year-old comes out. Pretty much every day. We don't have to even go anywhere. It comes out pretty much every day. But it is forever young. God can't get old. Why do we? We allow that state of mind to take over. So physically, emotionally, am I experiencing the emotions that I want to experience on any given day? When I wake up in the morning, what is my emotional set point? The first emotion I am aware of when I wake up. Because if I'm not aware of it, then it's happening by default. And if it's happening by default, then some way, shape, or form, it is the subliminal thing, subconscious thing, that is determining and dictating how my life is going. So I wake up angry. I don't even know that I'm angry, but I'm angry. Which means I'm going to yell at the kids, kick the cat, knock over the trash can, be mad because all the trash came out, and now I'm fussing because, I'm going to be like, fuck no. Really? Breathe, calm down, get centered, know who and what you are, and that you have the ability to change and transform your own emotions. Financially, spiritually, relationally. Do we have the relationships in our lives that demonstrate wealth, abundance, and prosperity? Because one of the things we talked about in our class was that if it's true that we are an amalgamation, we are the 5 closest people in our inner circle. Is that a good thing? Is it effective? Is it healthy? Or is there that one friend that we know we shouldn't be hanging out with? All you do is stand there. You never want to go participate and do anything. Come on, Mike, let's go. Like, you never, that's how they are. They're just whatever. But they're a friend. That's who you associate with. That means that's part of you. So our friends should be mirrors of what we desire. Beauty, health, well-being, joy, compassion. Because what we say, we should hear coming out of their mouths. And they should hear themselves coming out of ours. Because we are of one mind. We are like-minded. We are evenly yoked. But if not, then I'm going to socialize with people who aren't for and with my best good, my highest and best. And if I'm not, then ultimately, that means on some level, I'm sabotaging myself. So in all these things, am I demanding what I desire and deserve of myself? Am I willing to do the work necessary? If I were to say, every single issue, problem, concern, whatever you call it, challenge, whatever, you can call it whatever you want to call it. If I said, you have to read the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Kabbalion, the Torah, and the Encyclopedia Britannica from A to Q. And you have to do all of this within the next 6 months. And every single issue, problem, concern you have ever had would vanish. Would you do it? There are a lot of people who say they would. And we know people who say, oh yeah, I'm going to, starting the new year, I'm gonna. But at some point, some level, we let that little voice inside that demands us to be less than. Because somewhere in there, there's this idea that, how dare you really believe that you're beautiful? I mean, look at her. How dare you really think that you're handsome? Look at him. You really think you're that skilled to be able to? Look, and we compare ourselves to so many people. Oh, well, such and such is so much more spiritual than me. Such and such meditates so much better than I. Oh, their prayers are so beautifully written that I could never. We compare and we compare and we compare and we compare till we end up stuck in despair. Rather than simply saying, I am. And then do the work that is mine to do. So if we want peace in our lives, whatever that means for you, you want peace, then do the spiritual practices that foster and nurture and force it to grow. Meditate. Meditation is that ability to quiet the chatter and the monkey mind and whatever else is going on, that stuff that And meditation doesn't mean this goes away. It just means I'm not focused on it. I'm able to see the thought go by, but my sight is here. So we erroneously think that I'm supposed to get every thought in my head gone. And so when it doesn't happen, we get upset, frustrated, and we stop. And that's the very time we should push forward and meditate more diligently, realizing that this simply goes here, but my gaze is there. To pray, and one of the things we talked about in class was praying in this way where I'm not praying to God, but praying from the awareness that it is me. This awareness that it is showing up in me and as me, around me, moving through me. So these words are not my words. They are the words of God speaking through itself, about itself, for itself. So when I pray, I'm praying knowing the truth of what it is, what I am, what it desires, and clearly what it deserves. So I'm going to speak health, wholeness, wellness, prosperity, joy, love, compassion, benevolence. I'm going to speak all of the things that I desire and that I deserve. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, the good you seek is God. That which we seek that is good is synonymous with God. Are we elevating our sense of, to recognize that good, my good is my health. My good is my friendships, my love for everyone. And everyone's love for me is my good. And the moment I can grasp that and sink into that, I have to know God. Because in that moment of being present, in that feeling of, you ever hug somebody and whatever you were feeling prior to that is gone. All of the worry, the doubt, the fear, whatever it was, the anger that you had, and as soon as they embraced you, by no control of your own, it was gone. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and something they said lifted your countenance, lifted your consciousness to where you really believed that if I walk outside right now and throw this hand up and put this hand here or here, I'm going to fly? Like when Christopher Reeve came out with the movie Superman way back when, the tagline was, "And you will believe a man can fly." I'm not going to tell you how many times I attempted it. But I believed it. And I still believe it. Because just because my physical body doesn't, my consciousness can fly. And it can fly to places I can only begin to imagine. So we can do the impossible when we realize that I'm possible. I am all possibility showing up in human form. I am all potentiality showing up in human form. I am love poured in a 5'10", 165-pound container with brown skin. But I am love from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, from the surface of my skin to the deepest recesses of every quantum particle that makes up this form. I am love. And if it's true for me, and I am the one, and you are the one, then it's true for you as well. So we don't need an instruction manual. We really don't need guidelines. Because the moment we allow ourselves to recognize and realize who and what we are, we realize that the infinite wisdom that created every galaxy and keeps grass growing and roses blooming is the same wisdom right here, right now. The same knowledge that God, the universe, has that gave people the ability to store blood for blood transfusions, to do brain surgery, to create a smartphone. That same knowledge and intelligence is right here, right now. The cure for cancer is in this room. The cure for HIV is in this room. The cure for global hunger and poverty is in this room. Peace, no more war, is in this room. Unity. North Pole, South Pole, West and East. Every corner is in this room. Why? Because God is here. And the moment we surrender and allow that knowing to well up, allowing that light to shine forth, allowing that love to be expressed, we have no choice but to change the world because we've changed ourselves. So ditch the instruction manual and know that you are what you seek. You are infinite beyond measure in every aspect you could ever possibly imagine. And the moment we center into that, and the moment we say yes, the universe says, I've been waiting for you. Yes. Now let's have fun. So it is.